Hello, everybody. Welcome to is it the 12th or the 13th? I can't keep up.
I thought it was the 12th, but you know what it is? We're putting videos on different platforms and I lose. Anyway, it doesn't matter. Welcome to today's show.
It doesn't matter. Welcome to today's show. What we've decided to do today with Erkan is for me to actually interview Erkan, which is the face behind our empowered living movement, to actually see what his views are, why he set this up, and how he's actually fulfilling it and living it through. So I wanted to start off really, Erkan, to ask you, what on earth made you do this? What drove you to launch into this empowered living movement?
Well,
apart from me.
Yeah, I was going to say, in a way, it was you, because I was a bit resistant about it, because I've been doing these things in different forms for years, and I know how much. I mean, it's not like, oh, woe is me, there's loads of work involved, but what difference will it really make? And then you and I decided, or we kind of agreed that we're doing it for us. We're going to do it for us. We're going to share ideas. We're going to invite guests on. And as long as we're enjoying it, then that's all that matters. And, in terms of being a movement or raising consciousness in the wider ether, if you like, then great. That's even more beautiful in terms of these conversations. But I guess nothing lives in isolation. There's a whole trail that personally brought me here and brought me to a position to meet you and kind of look at what is it to live an empowered life. And I've been around the personal development world and personal transformation and empowerment. These are words that I've used for, at least since, in one form or another for 35 odd years, probably more. And remember when I was 13, 14, we were doing Gestalt in a youth organisation. A mention for the Turkish Youth Association when I was about 13, 14. We used to do group dynamics and Gestalt, and we used to talk about our feelings and how they made us feel and how we could overcome those, especially when you're a teenager. You had very complex and gripping emotions that led you down different kind of traumas, I suppose, part of the rite of passage as we grow older. And that idea of empowerment had always been something that, like a moth to light, I just always was interested in how could I improve, how could I alter the situations in my life to achieve the things I wanted to, how could I be the best version of me ongoingly. And it led me down many avenues. I mean, I guess coming out of I would have been sort of like the mid-80s originally. It was more about confrontation and demands, and it was more kind of lefty kind of politics in those days. I was exposed to kind of more about, like fighting for our rights, and it was posters of Che Guevara and Bob Marley, and it was a very different era, but it was about freedom fighting. It was about understanding that there's an oppression. So it wasn't so much about empowerment, it was more about fighting for your rights and justice. So I think that's something that's always been, I've been very passionate, very, very kind of connected to the idea of justice and things being fair and doing the right thing. Do you
feel, Erkan, that it's been initially the first part of the journey was this sort of activist side, this activist Erkan, like you're saying, being aware of the oppression and actually, freedom fighting and, going out there and spreading the word and whatnot. But now it's sort of moved on to a different level of, sort of looking more so within, so to speak.
Well, I think we're jumping, for me, I think that's jumping quite ahead. I think in those days, it was about demonstrating and being part of the student union. And, I was very aware of the experience of racism moving out of North London where I went to a school called Winchmore School back in the day, and I never knew I was different. I knew there was Greek kids and Turkish kids and Indian kids and, you know, all different kinds of nationalities, but it wasn't like a race. And then when I was about 11 and a bit in the second year, coming up to my 12th year, my parents took me out of North London and put me into an pretty much all white school in Hertfordshire called Goffs Grammar School back in the day. And you know, it was antiquated. It was like the head teachers were wearing black robes, and you know, they were just coming out the grammar school. I think they weren't a grammar school when I got there, but clearly there was the smell of grammar school in the air. That, you know, and it was very authoritarian, and teachers used to tell racist jokes in the class. The kids were racist. And on my first day, like, you know, coming into, you know, midway through the second year, where all the pecking orders have been worked out and all the, you know, everyone knows their place, especially around, you know, men and boys. You know, I got there, and the first day I got punched in the face and called a packie, and it was a rude awakening. It was a horrendous experience, and that moment shaped my life visibly and invisibly till 1997, January 97. And I'll say more about that in a second. But the thing was, I lived inside a world in a predominantly white community where I knew I didn't belong, and I knew I wasn't wanted, and I knew I wasn't valued. And you in terms of how your identity forms, you create ways of being to survive those moments in life and the decisions you make. So I kind of became funny, and I wanted to win people over to dissipate their threat. And you know, it was kind of my way, like becoming a bit of a clown. And that worked. It did work. That's the thing with these ways of reacting. It did work. But I was also around the same time part of this Turkish Youth Association, which my cousin Ramsey Ozturk was the founder, and he set that up. He was a social worker at the time in Haringey, so as far as I remember. And it was about getting like young Turkish kids, Turkish Cypriots mainly, together to talk about our experiences and understand what we were going through. And it was an amazing time, It was, we did festivals, we did protests. I was one of the first, I was the youngest member of the committee at the age of 14. So I was going to committee meetings, taking minutes and being part of, you know, making notes. And it was an amazing lesson in how you organize people, how you organize yourselves to achieve, how to lobby, how to turn up at, I don't know, council offices. You know, I remember going to the South African embassy and protesting outside of that, and going on marches, and we were doing festivals and mixing the cultural aspect and feeling proud to be a Turkish Cypriot, as opposed to my other life, the one in Hertfordshire, where I just needed to duck and dive and avoid a bullying and a beating here and there, and just keep my wits about me.
And so survive, basically.
Yeah. So the idea of being empowered was really early on. You know, it was before that even. Anyway, I like to know how things work, and I like to get the most out of life. Even as a young boy, I was quite kind of dexterous, and I was good with my hands. And I knew how to cook, and I knew how to, you know, I wasn't afraid to delve in and have a go. But the idea to be empowered, and this idea of justice, and I think that's where it made it more about activism and social justice and understanding the oppression of the system. At the age of 14, to kind of have that, you know, I was reading Michael Haralambous' book, sociology book, which is an A-level book, at the age of 14, because of the influences of my older cousins. So they were kind of sharing these things with me because I was interested and I was there.
And so you realised sort of at quite an early age that, you know, the social conditioning and how this, you know, these classic indoctrination sites, should I say, this is a way of sort of setting up the kids for the system.
Yeah, exactly.
And
the other thing that happened.
So you found your sort of tribe in the Turkish community.
Yeah, and there was a difficult time as well. I mean, because there was a lot of gossiping, people didn't behave well, there was animosity between different, you know, it was all the same playground rules. I mean, it was kind of its era. And I guess that's what we were learning, how to be with each other. You know, you had your, I don't know, you had your hip hop lot, you had your soul lot. Within, you know, there were fractions within that. You had your, I don't know, arty types that were doing theatrical and music stuff. So it was a kind of a microcosm of a wider society. But then around 14, and no, it was earlier as well, we drove to Turkey by car. I think, again, it was actually before I started secondary school. So I'd have been about 11, my 11th year. My dad decided we're going to go Turkey and Cyprus by car. And we drove across, you know, back then it was Europe, and then Yugoslavia, the former Yugoslavia, and then Bulgaria, going through the old Iron Curtain country, and then traveling through Turkey to Cyprus. And that year, we were away for 2.5 months. And it kind of made me see that, you know, the road markings are different in different countries, the bread is different, people dress differently, they speak differently, the money's different. There was no, I don't think it was European Union back then, as in terms of the euro wasn't about in the late 70s. And it kind of, I don't know, all of those factors together made me realize, one, how different everything can be, rather than the if you like, the standard version of the world that we're given by state education, and I suppose stayed cultural, because back then English people weren't traveling like they are today. We didn't have the internet. I think we probably only had 2 or 3 channels on TV, so that it was a very narrow view of the world. And here I was, before 14, this was by not even, I think I had my 11th birthday on the trip, because it was July, my birthday. I was exposed to all these countries, cultures, languages, different types of food. Turkey is very different to Cyprus, and it was back then as well. And then spending probably 6, 7 weeks in the village with my cousins, and it was really, you know, it was really an interesting time. And I got so bored, I got a job in the cafe. You know, it was an interesting time. And then coming back to that world, kind of, it was like I'd been away and then come back with all this knowledge and experience that the majority of the people around me had no idea. If at all, they might have gone on a week's holiday to Spain or something, but not really. You know, most kids didn't even leave the country in those days. So thanks to my mum and dad, and my dad's desire for travel, I got exposed to this, you know, and I was map reading, no sat nav. You know, I'm map reading and telling my dad, you know, we're doing we're plotting our course along the way. And also we're driving a right-hand car in a left-hand Europe. So when we was over, you know, and it wasn't big lane motorway, especially when you kind of come out of Germany and Austria, and you started to come into the Yugoslavia and Bulgaria. I mean, these are large, you know, long journeys. I was kind of watching overtake, and we'd overtake the lorry, and then we'd overtake. So I was kind of, you know, and every now and again I'd get it wrong. We'd pull out and there'd be a lorry. And my dad would go, "Man, what are you doing?" So it was kind of learning to trust myself in quite perilous environments. And it was just, I don't know, it was a fascinating time, Ayse.
So when you were, you know, as you grew up quite fast, to be fair, or awoke quite fast, I should say, for you, you know, age-wise, how did you then move on from there? Because most of the people around you, obviously, having been conditioned from their own childhood, it wasn't like a classic child that they had, you know, to deal with. So how did you sort of cope from there, Erkan? You know, after 14, after telling people, well, hey, I don't believe in anybody, all I believe in is you, you know, from being such an awoke child, and, you know.
So I think at that age, what worked for me was hanging out with older people, because the older people and the older cousins and older friends had an insight and a view of the world that was very advanced for my age at the time. And also reading books like, like I said, the sociology books, and it wasn't just reading and like internalizing information, it was engaging in the conversations. And also I was quite militant at school because my school was quite oppressive. So I wasn't afraid of them, which I don't know, my dad always said to me, you weren't afraid of us. I wasn't intimidated by adults. Now it doesn't mean they didn't scare me, because if an adult starts hitting you, you really haven't really got anywhere to go, which I experienced as well. But I wasn't afraid of them. I wasn't like in fear. I wasn't intimidated by them. And I remember being at school, again, I was about 14, and the gym teachers back then at Gough School used to kind of, they used to bully us, and they used to hit us with something called a Betsy. Like I think it was like a paddle ball, they used to hit us. They used to hit us back then. And I said to one of my teachers, I can't remember his name, I wish I could, but we was kind of standing by this fence, but there was an outer fence around that. We used to have a swimming pool in our school. It was an outdoor pool. And we were standing there like leaning, talking. And I said to him, look, I know you try and instill fear in us, but I'm not afraid of you. You don't scare me, and your little tactics aren't going to work. And he went, okay, it's fair enough. Thank you for being so honest. It's really great that you said these things. I went, fine, great. And I went. And then it was after the lunch break, we went back for registration, and my registration teacher says, you need to go and see the headmaster, Dr. Hadley. I thought, well, I really thought I hadn't done anything. Not this time anyway. So I go wait, and they basically call me into the headmaster's office, and I go in, there's deputy head, and there's head of year, and there's the headmaster behind the table, and they're all wearing their black robes. And I walk in, and I used to be very smart because my parents were in dry cleaning. So I was very used to, my tie, smart. I wasn't a sloppy. I wasn't like a rebel without a cause. I was kind of like a bit more sharper than the average rebellious type. Anyway, so this teacher who was about 6'5", maybe taller, very tall, me 14, he walks around, he gets this paperweight and he bangs it on the desk. And he told him, he said, you told Mr. I can't remember his name, that you weren't afraid of him. And he walks around the desk and he grabs me and he pushes me against the wall. He lifts me up. I'm literally like that against the wall with his face like the alien, like in the, like that. And he goes, well, are you afraid of me, boy? Like, you really need to know your place, right? And I'll tell you, I was a cool cat as well back then. And I just went, I looked round, I looked at the two teachers, I looked at him, and I thought, I was going to kick him in the nuts. And I had that, I thought because he was exposed, and I would have had him. Because I used to do karate when I was younger, so I knew how to kick someone. And in my mind, I know this happened in a split second, but my mind went, if I do that, then I'm out of here, and I'm the villain.
Yeah.
Right? And I looked at them and I kind of grinned at him. I went, yeah, I'm afraid of you, like that. And he put me down and I kind of straightened myself off. He goes, here's 100 lines or whatever it was, get out of here. And I thought, and then anyway, I went home and told my dad, and my dad said, right, we're going in. And he told them, they ever touch me again, he'll come down and batter them. And it never bothered me again.
Because someone your own size, eh?
Yeah, and then during this phase, what happened at this point, my cousin Ramsey, just to say the work he was doing back then, he came and he spoke to them and he talked to them about racism and this and that. Not that they gave a shit. I mean, they probably just thought it was all like some lefty hippie from North London coming and telling them how to run their school. But it was racist. It was a racist school, and it was racist to the core. Racist. Teachers telling racist jokes in class. The kids were being, it was all packy this and wog and coon. And in fact, I did a stand-up routine that pretty much explains the whole thing, what it was like. It wasn't about whether you're, I remember once saying to the kids, I'm Turkish Cypriot, just, they went, yeah, you Turkish Cypriot. I went, yes, that's it. It was the racism was that I wasn't even black, coon, wog, spag, bong, packy, whatever.
Right.
Packy was the favourite, And I hated it at the time, but then in 1997, I went and did course called the Landmark Forum. A friend of mine had been telling me about for about a year. And I was kind of a know-it-all, so, I know I get called arrogant every now and again. And I guess you can afford to be a little bit arrogant when you've done the work. If you've researched and you've thought things through, you have a way of sharing that information. There's a confidence. And I think confidence and arrogance can be confused.
Yeah,
and maybe it's also learning how to give information without seeming arrogant, maybe. But in 97, a friend of mine, Theo Charalambos, a Greek friend of mine, who was originally a friend of mine from Winchmore School, said to me, "You should do the Landmark Forum. I think you get a lot out of it." And I'd just come out of a long relationship that hadn't worked out, and I was brokenhearted. I was building my business, and I thought, yeah, you know what? Why not? And the way he approached the subject, because I was like, yeah, but I've done all this stuff before, and I had done this stuff before in my mind, because I did Gestalt and all these group dynamics, and I've been looking at myself, and I wasn't an unaware person, but I was suffering, and he saw that, and what he said to me, he said, "Look, I tell you what, I'll pay for it." I was like, "What?" Theo, bless him, I love him, I really do. He was one of the tightest people I've ever met. And when he said I'd pay for it, Ayse, I was shocked, because money wouldn't have stopped me doing it. And he said, "I'll pay for it, I'll register you, I'll go do all your whatever, and all you've got to do is promise me one thing. You go in Friday morning and you finish Tuesday night when it finishes, because it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then you do Tuesday night, and that's the finish of the forum, Landmark Forum." Well, yeah, of course I'll do it. I wouldn't dream of starting something and not finishing it. But he said, "That's the one thing I insist that you do, if I pay for it. And if you don't like it, you don't have to pay me back." Right? I thought, okay, that's Theo. He wants his money back. But he's invested in me blind. And that was a real shock. So I went and did this Landmark Forum. I turned up. It was in Paddington back then. There was about 500, 400 people in the room. And there was this Australian guy called David Ure leading this forum. And it was the most incredible, awe-inspiring, transformational experience I've ever had. And he just walked in, he was wearing this beautiful suit, he was tall, he was loud, he was brash, arrogant. He wasn't arrogant, but he was just so confident in the things he was saying. And he's, I remember in I've worked with 35,000 people, so there's not much that I haven't seen or heard. I'm like, wow, imagine 35,000 people. And this was in 97. And halfway through this program, on the Saturday afternoon, I had the most, I would say, I don't want to make it woo-woo, but it was almost like an out-of-body experience. I got for myself the story I'd created after I got punched in the face and called a packy was that all white people are racist. And I've been living inside that story ever since. Yeah. And no one stood a chance. If I went into a shop and the woman checked the money and she's white, it's because she's racist. If a guy pulled across me in traffic, he cut me up because he was a racist. It was just like, I couldn't have a career because it's a racist system. And there was a lot of agreement for that in our culture back then, because of the, it's just, that's how it was. It wasn't even...
It's how it was, absolutely.
That's how it was for us. That's how it occurred.
And you find proof for your story, don't you?
Exactly. And that's where context is key. So if you live inside a context that is all white people are racist, you find the evidence to support that through your own biases and filters. But on that Saturday, 97, early January, I got that I was the one who added the narrative all white people are racist. Yes, I got punched in the face and called a packy. That did happen. And funny enough, the guy that did that, we became friends after that. But it was like I was the one still carrying around the source of pain and suffering. And I got racism completed. It was gone in an instant. It was transformed, because after that, I created the conversation, I can have a relationship with anyone. And I am responsible for my relationships. And it just changed my whole being. And I came out of that Landmark Forum, like 5 foot taller, broader, more grounded, and my whole relationship to white people had completely transformed. And I've never experienced racism ever again. Now, for the audience, I'm not saying people are not racist. That's not what I'm saying. But if, you know, I tell you what, it was like years later, I was taking my kids to school one morning, or going to pick them up one afternoon, and there was a kid on a bike, he goes, "Packy!" I just laughed. I couldn't stop laughing, because before that would have driven me crazy. It would have made me
It would have triggered you before.
It would have triggered me, yeah.
Yeah.
So what I had was this, through the early days of TYA and my experience there, into landmark education and understanding really on a more, I'd say more formal, more of an adult. I was an adult by then, understanding of transformation and what empowerment is, from what I would say probably one of the top organizations anywhere on the planet in this area. It kind of gave me a grounding in empowerment and what is possible that I'd never experienced. I mean, the thought of that I could complete racism in an instant, in a weekend program, and this is just the first of hundreds, if not thousands, of breakthroughs. So living inside that and a commitment to make a difference and make the human experience on this planet more workable, I feel
so what made you realise, Erkan, that, you know, obviously you've had this groundbreaking realisation that, you know, it was in your head thinking that all white people were racist. So what made you realise that, you know, you could then work with this and move forward to help other people have these amazing realizations? Because that is what you do. That is your job.
That is what I did. We're going to have to take a break here, guys. We're back in a second. So on that note, we'll come back in a sec. And we're back to part 2. Right, yeah, Ayse. So what was that question again?
So Erkan, having the realizations that you did about, you know, how a lot of it was in your head. Obviously, you've had your experience, but how it affected you for that duration of time up until 1997, you realised that, you know, you were creating that story and giving yourself, you know, finding the evidence and the proof to you know, firm it up in your head. Once you had that realisation, what was it that made you realise, well, actually, you know, this is the source of most people's pain, and you know, I can now go forth into the world and try and help my fellow humans? You know, what made you realise that it's more about now providing that service for others to try and help them to come out of their suffering and their pain?
Well, that desire was always there. I mean, obviously that's why I was part of TYA for so many years, and then I was part of the student union, and I've been a part of organisations and groups that were committed to make the world a better place, or at least challenge the tyranny or the suppression, and being aware of what is happening. So I was already there, but I'd lost the desire to do that. When I, you know, it was years later, when I was a bit older, a bit wiser, I come away from TYA. It wasn't working. It was imploding as an organisation. Had so many issues, so many accusations. It wasn't a nice time. So I kind of thought I'd give up on that, and I started a life in business. And so by the time I'm doing Landmark Forum, it reawakened to me. It reawakened me to the desire to make that difference, and it reawakened my leadership, my desire for leadership. And I spent a good 2 years in what I'd call high-end, high engagement training at Landmark. So the forum is a 3-day, 1 evening, and there's a 10-session seminar that supports the program. But what it does is it helps you reconcile the past. What you're doing is filing those past decisions and bringing in a number of what we call distinctions or abstractions that are designed to empower you, not like they're a truth or something you have to believe in, but like, you know, just the idea of the distinction story. You know, there's what happens and there's the meaning we add, and quite often we collapse the two. Like, you know, what happened is I got punched in the face, called a packy. What I made it mean, and the interpretation was all white people are racist, and that incident became the one thing, and the filter is all white people are racist. And it was basically a series of those kind of abstractions and distinctions that I was learning. So, but that is pretty much about your past. Now you've got a handle on how to reconcile, or to use Landmark's terminology, to complete the past, i.e. you've filed it and it's done. Like, I don't complain about white people anymore. I haven't done in decades, but it was part of my life, but it's now in the past where it belongs. And the decision is now, if you like, imagine Etch-a-Sketch. I don't know, probably our older audience will remember Etch-a-Sketch, but you kind of use these two dials to draw like something, and then you shake it and it's blank slate. We don't really have that in common understanding in the world. We don't really, like this idea of having our kids at school for 15,000 hours, and they're not teaching them how to be complete and how to resolve things in a way that they're free, tells you everything you need to know about what our education system is really designed for. It's not designed to empower, it's designed to control. I don't want to get on my soapbox about that, right?
100%.
But the point was, I was learning skills that are fundamentally shift the very experience of what it is to be a human being. And that's it. That to me is thrilling. It's like every time I went to Landmark, or I was working on my life through the distinctions that were developed, there was a new opportunity in my life over and over and over again. It's like, as much as you wanted to invest yourself in it, there was value, which is incredible. So, but again, that's your past, the forum and its set of distinctions. And then we did the advanced course. I don't want this to be an advert for Landmark Education, but I would never not say how valuable the what I learned there was. It was incredible. So you get to design a future. You get to design a future, your future, not from the reactions and the decisions of the past and the restrictions, but from the possibilities and the openness of the future. And that's not something that I see in many people's lives.
Yeah.
Because what people are generally...
Like you said, it's lacking in the education system.
It's lacking in the culture.
And in the culture, absolutely.
Yeah. So to just briefly give you the audience the ideas, like, so you get to create your future from the future. And I know that might sound very kind of cryptic, but if you really start to understand what I'm saying and you listen to creating a future from the future, is what I mean. And to do that is unprecedented for the human experience. And then to also systematic way of producing breakthroughs in your life. Like, you can have breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. So this is not a small thing for a human being. This is a transformation in what it means to be human. And then they do what they call the SELP, which is the Self-Expression Leadership Program. Because once you create a palpable future, contextually, i.e. who you're going to be in the world, am I going to be an 11-year-old boy got punched in the face, called a Paki, and live my life out of those decisions? Or am I going to be a 26, 27-year-old adult who's creating his future on his own terms? But the thing is, you create a future, then you have to deal with something called other people. Because you can't have a future, you can have a future on your own, but the reality is, who we know ourselves to be is within the midst of other human beings. So when you say to me, Erkan, yeah, exactly. But when you say to me, you react to me a certain way, I get to know who I am, who am I being, because of the way you respond to me. And the same for you. You know, who you are, think about it, is existing in how I perceive you.
Yeah.
You understand what I mean?
Very true.
So your existence in a community is on how you're being perceived. And guess what? If you're living from a life of expression and leadership, you can instill how people will think about you by what you say, who you're being, and the things you do. So you've got to confront groups, and you've got to confront people if you want to do anything worthwhile. Now, we also know that a lot of people retreat back into themselves and live very isolated lives, and tell you can't get on with women because of this, you can't get on with men because of that, and family is like this, and business, and they're just boxing themselves in to ever decreasing circles. And one of the fundamental things I learned at Landmark was that, you know, the old model of education leaves you old, lonely and right. And if you look at a lot of older people, they're not wisdom, they're not enlightenment, they're just righteous.
Yeah, very, very
and they've limited what's possible. So that's what I learned in the curriculum for living. And that was the 4-part, you know, the forum, the seminar, the advanced course, and the self-expression leadership program was called the curriculum for living. And it totally is a curriculum for living. So I went through that and then decided I want to be part of this organization. I want to lead their programs. I want to be the guy at the front of the room. I want to do what that guy or that woman's doing, because it seems so magical. It seems, you know, doing it for yourself and learning is amazing, but then giving that gift to others. So then I spent the next 2 or 3 years learning how to deliver the programs. And I did. I delivered programs for about 2 years. You know, everything from, you know, integrity seminars to being inspired, to relationship seminars. I mean, there's a seminar on, you know, Landmark are really good at creating seminars on, you know, money, sex and intimacy, health and fitness. There's loads. And it's a very contextual way. But one of the main things about Landmark is you can't live a life of transformation on your own. It's about engaging others into that conversation of transformation. So Landmark does get accused of being a cult, or it gets accused of putting pressure on people to register and do their programs. And you know what? Good, fair play to them. Because if what you're doing has honor and integrity and it makes a difference to people's lives, then sometimes you've got to talk to people until they're, you know, until the hind legs, you know, people say you took the hind legs off a donkey, but only because you're so resistant. If I just said you do the program and you did it, we'd all be off. We'd be creating an amazing world. You know, and if I look back at Theo's experience of getting me to the Landmark Forum, I was a know-it-all. I knew it all already, and his commitment to me was I'll pay for it, and it completely floored me. I was like, wow, that's how confident you are that I should do this. I'm internally indebted to him for that.
Yeah.
You know, and all the staff. Yeah, I don't sound like a bit of a promo for Landmark. By the way, I'm not involved with Landmark in a formal way. I haven't been since 2003, so it's over 19 years since I left the organization. But I still honor the journey and what it gave me, and a fundamental understanding of empowerment as a concept in human experience. That's kind of where the grounding came for it.
So Erkan, where to now? What are you currently experiencing now with this empowered living?
Before I answer that question, I just want to say something else. I created and co-founded an organization called Be Collaboration, where I wanted to do it my way, or do it, you know, like I'd learned a lot from Landmark. I got so much out of being part of Student Union and these other organizations and T-Way in the day, and I'd read. And when I left Landmark in 2003, I went down the rabbit hole. That's kind of when my real rabbit hole journey started, you know, really red pill. And I did a lot of research into money and aliens and Nazis and loads. I mean, anyone who knows me, so I'm very, very obsessive. And I wanted to know, why is there poor? Why is there poverty? Why are there wars? Why are there diseases? Why does the world doesn't seem to work? We seem to have everything. I think I mentioned to you resource-based economy earlier on before we started the show. We've got everything we need. There's enough of everything for everyone. What's going on here? And what I learned was it's designed that way. It is by design that we have poverty and we have wars and we have debt and we have disease. We can cure a lot more than we do. We could get everyone out of poverty. Everyone can be fed. There's more than enough on the planet. And around 2012, I mean, this is quite a long time after I left Landmark, because I'd concentrated on my business for quite a while. And then that failed, or I sold up as well. And then I had this idea of starting a community of people who want to co-create and collaborate. And I met someone called Jill Tiny. And Jill and I basically set up this organization. We started to create a members organization to get people together to share their best stuff, to help each other, to have an extraordinary conversation. And I worked on that for 7 odd years with Jill. and we just couldn't build the momentum. We couldn't keep the integrity of the vision. It was just, were we ahead of our time, or was it? I don't know. But before COVID started, we just that failed. That organisation failed. It just wasn't. It wasn't growing. It wasn't attracting. We couldn't get people to really think from those principles of collaboration and working within context and contribution. It just didn't. It wasn't viable. We couldn't get it to. We couldn't. And we used to have a very high experience, right? People used to come and say they had an amazing time, a transformational experience, but we just couldn't make it work. So again, that failed. And I spent 7 years trying to warn people of what was coming in terms of the tyranny and the oppression and the control. And I was being fundamentally ignored, I think. That was my experience. It just wasn't, we weren't getting the traction. So by December 19, B collaboration failed. And I was 2 months into 2020 thinking, what am I going to do in my life? I mean, as a business coach, consulting, and I knew there was more coming. I knew it. I've been telling people for years. And I was part of, not a member or anything, but I used to go to the Alternative View conferences that were run by a guy called Ian Crane. And I used to follow him, and UK Column and Mark Passio, and I could go on. Mark Windows, I've got to give him credit because he's been so instrumental in my learning about, if like, lifting the veil of what is really going on the planet. And I guess around that time, it was, around September 2020, it was time, that something had to change. And that started, I suppose, a cascade of events that led me to be here in North Cyprus and looking for more of an off-grid, self-sufficient life, a life more connected to nature. And also the idea of being back in my homeland, in my ancestral home. All big changes. Big changes. So in terms of empowered living, I guess my respect for you and the dynamic we have, I just thought, you know what, just hold your hand and lead the way, because I think it's something you wanted to do. Although I was saying it to you from the beginning, I thought, I've been down so many of these crusades, quests, and they create the value they do, but I never felt like we really achieved what we wanted to. So I guess there was that inner heartbreak or inner.
I think where it comes from such an authentic place now, where you've had all of these experiences and, the ups and the downs, it's like you've just let it down to the flow, just let it flow. I think where you've tried so hard before, maybe it's been too much trying, but if you don't have failure, you never have success, or you never understand the success, So it's all part of the game of life, isn't it?
In 2018, Jill asked me to do a talk because I was going through a really difficult point. I'd hit an all-time low. And she said, look, I want you to get out there and do a talk. Do what you do best. Go out there and, there was something we used to call a know and be known session where people shared their best stuff and introduced themselves to the community. And people couldn't do that until they'd been in the organisation a little while, gone through some of the training, because we wanted someone out there in front of the room authentically sharing who they are for the world and what their passion is and all that kind of stuff. And in June 2018 in London, I did a talk on, and I just said that I reached a point of utter despair. Utter despair, the state of the human species. And obviously over the last 2 years with the COVID narrative and how people have been buying that and lining up and getting injected with, God knows what. I guess there was dealing with your own inner despair, even though you care and you feel you have a grip on what is going on, but still being willing to relearn everything over and over again. And I was thinking about today's thing. There was this one quote that Peter Joseph says, I don't care what you think. I don't even care what I think, because the next moment a whole new view of the world could come along, and that could change everything, transform everything. Going from all white people are racist to I'm one with humanity, if you like. You know, every human being is a human being. Is a big shift. So who knows what the next moment could hold in terms of love, connection, how we live our lives, what's possible, who you might meet, and what influence they'll have on you.
100%. Oh, well, thank you, Erkan, for sharing your experiences, your life, basically, because it's shown how education has made you who you are, really, in every way, shape, and form.
Yeah, I'd
even
say
down to the indoctrination part, down to your own, you know, researching and how your elders and more mature people in your environment have really had a big impact on where you're at today.
I mean, going back to education, you know, going to an English school in the day and a Turkish school at night. I mean, it was just like, it was insane. These people, I just used to look at it, these people are mad. They're all
Yeah,
mad.
really, when you think about it, they are. But it's just the norm, isn't it?
They're just
In this
in the,
matrix that we
yeah,
live in.
they're in this mind control narrative, and they
Yeah.
want you to be in the mind control. And if you say no, they don't like it. And I was used to that from a young age, to say, no, you know, that makes sense what you're saying. You know? Yeah, my blood is Turkish, yeah? You sure? But, you know, I mean, if you cut it and take it out, it's just like, oh, positive. I don't think there's, you know, that's, you just made that up. You just made that up. And I don't want to believe it. I don't want to believe my blood is Turkish, for example. I'm not a nationalist. I mean, I think we should be saying our blood is all the same, not that we're all different.
Yeah.
You know, and I think if you just pay attention, all the clues are there. They are. I mean, you keep calling this a movement. I'm like,
I think it is. Because everybody, there are a lot of people like us that are also getting on the train, you know. That's how I see it. That's my own personal view.
No,
Because
I'm up for
we're
it.
just sharing it together.
Yeah, exactly. And you know, I mean, I think you know, and I was out with Ralph the other night, and I was acknowledging him. And I thought, oh, but I've come over all gushy. I did have a beer or two, but I just like, you know, like I've met, I kind of know myself well enough now to meet people that I think know themselves well enough, and then go, yeah, I'm gonna hook my trailer up to this person, and you know, and that's it. And before I wanted a global impact, and I wanted to make a big difference, and I had a passion for years. I invested my life force into that, and that's rightly so, and that's what I wanted to do, and I don't regret any of it. But now I just find life can be a lot more, you know, can we really make a difference to the World Economic Forum and the UN agendas, and you know, they're going to do what they do, but I can make a difference to what I do in my day to day and my interactions with you or my friends.
And it does start locally, doesn't it? It starts with a little ripple, locally, and then slowly, you can make that difference.
Yeah, and I'm sure we do. I'm sure we add to the collective consciousness. You know, the collective, you know, the 100th monkey effect. You know, we're all adding something to what creates this collective experience. You know, so I think we should just carry on doing this, and who knows, something will come along, an opportunity to do something, add to it. I mean, I don't know if you know, Sarah's been in touch. We want to do something together. And I said, Sarah, this is why me and I started this. So nutters like you come out of the woodwork, and we're going to do something together. You know, it might work, it may fail, but you know, finding those kindred spirits, those people that you're on a level with, you know, whether they take you up a level or you take them up a level, it doesn't really matter.
Definitely.
We're all on the same journey. I think that's the thing, that journey of discovery, that journey of, you know, funny enough, it's, you know, I designed a program called the Be Inspired program. And I opened it with one of these things, is that one of the things is that, you know, as a growing child, we have innate genius, innate wisdom. You know, you still have that with your kids, that they're still at that age where they'll say something, you go, my God, because they're so near to source, they're so near to, you know, and then that is, in my opinion, squandered actively. It's squandered by the education system and the culture. You know, our parents did it to us, we probably do it to our kids at some level.
Yeah, and it's the accepted norm.
Yeah.
Madness, mad world.
Yeah.
But you know, at least we're madder, and we can be mad together.
Yeah.
So if you like what we're doing, guys, like and subscribe, and give us some ideas. You know, share with us what you think. You know, or you'd like to hear or talk about, or if anybody wants to come on and talk with us about their journey or anything that they feel that would be of great benefit to us in this community, please do feel free to just, you know, message us. It's been lovely talking to you, Erkan, as usual.
Thanks, Ayse. I haven't done anything like this in a while. So.
Yeah, normally it's you. It feels odd, me talking, but it's been a pleasure hearing your journey, and I think of great value, because it's just shown how from childhood to your current age, that whole experience and what shaped you and formed you and got you to where you're at. So and what a lovely place to be at. You've done full circle.
I've got a suggestion for you. I think next one I'll interview you and see how you got to where you are. And I think it'd be a nice, lovely conversation.
Yeah, that would be lovely. I'd be happy to do that. Okay. I was going to say maybe we could also get you to do, for anybody locally, obviously, of our local audience, to maybe do one of your amazing sessions on, you know, empowerment.
Yeah, we could.
Because
that's a great idea.
You have got real value to give to people.
Yeah,
those that want to learn, or, you know, open their mind to this stuff.
Yeah,
I think would be great if you're open to that.
Yeah, we could do a Be Inspired program, which is an all-dayer, or we could do something different. Let's, you know, give some feedback, guys, and we'll put a date out on a venue and we'll do it. Why not? Yeah, I'd love to get back on the horse.
Yeah, definitely get back in the saddle.
Yeah.
I have been horse riding, by the way. I don't know if you.
Well, I know you have a horse, but I assume you ride it now and again.
Yeah, I've never in my life. Well, when I was younger, I used to, but it was sort of just on summer holidays. We used to just go and have a little walk round on the donkeys. It wasn't even on a horse. But since this whole journey is mad where it's taken you, isn't it?
Mm.
So yeah.
And it's you know, just for those who are not in North Cyprus, today is just a beautiful day. I mean, that's the thing I've been, you know, finding how, you know, like to wake up and get so much pleasure from just being where you are. I mean, I've been on the beach this morning. I've had a walk. I've had a swim. The garden. I got home. My parents are working in the garden. The garden's looking lush, and just sitting here feeling the breeze. It's just like, you know, glass of lemon juice. It's like you don't really need much.
No, it's true. Simple things in life.
I'm learning that as well.
Yeah, and I think being still is really important, because when you're always on the move or thinking, and you know, it muffles all your thoughts and your connection to your higher self. Just being still, it just brings it back home, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
it's like taking that time out to
I think I said before, my diary, my Google diary sends me an email in the morning. It says, you now have no events in your diary. I'm like, yes. You know, before when I was in the UK, it'd be like one thing after another, a call, a meeting, piece of work, a follow-up, do an invoice, chase some money, try and get a sale. You know, it was like, it was all the time. And also, you're never present when you're like that. You're just always, oh my God, I got you know, micro. And then you get all this kind of micro lists and this list and planning. And I thought, now I just wake up and think, right, today I'm going to go and see some properties, or I'm going to go for a walk, or I need to go and do this or that, you know. Or I've got my daughters tomorrow or whatever, you know.
So where from now on, Erkan?
Well, I don't want to go too much into my personal life, but it's you know, setting up my life here in North Cyprus. You know, that's what I want to kind of, for me personally, and I just really enjoy the summer. I want to just really squeeze every last drop of joy out of the next 2 months, July and August, and then September, maybe I need to start earning some money or doing something that creates an income. It's getting to that point.
Well, it's all part of being in this realm, isn't it?
Yeah. I mean, that's an interesting one, because especially around money, because people, that's something I'm working on at the moment, is how to really reduce what you need in terms of what you need, but then in terms of how do we sell ourselves out for money and the things that money brings, whether it's the watches and the cars and the status and the house and all those things, and how much they kind of are part of our identity, a part of who we are. Take away your career, who are you? Take away your income, who are you? Take away the house, who are you? Who are you when you take everything away? That's something that I've been exploring.
It is that. That's a whole nother subject, isn't it?
Yeah, we'll save that for another day.
Absolutely.
Cool. Are we done, or doing anything else?
I think, yeah. Is there anything else you want to add?
Yeah, I guess something like, forgive fast, whether it's yourself or others. Just, it's like, clean up as you go. Brush that stuff off. Don't hold on to things. It's
Detox.
Detox your, toxicity. Your own toxicity in terms of holding a grudge or feeling unhappy with someone or something. And it recalibrates you. Because I think I do notice there's a lot of people in the world that are holding on to angst and regret and animosity and upset, and it's like you taking the poison and expecting someone else to die. It's like you only do yourself harm. So I'd say forgive fast, and especially yourself, whether it's your mistakes, your indiscretions. This isn't a dress rehearsal. This is the real thing. You're live on stage every moment of your life, and somewhere along the line you're going to get it wrong. So forgive.
Mm-hmm.
As long as your intentions are honourable, great.
Yeah. Very, very good point.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, it's all good. It's all good. It's all part of the journey, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. It is.
Oh, but it's lovely to talk to you, Erkan.
Thank you, Ayse. I really enjoyed it. Always.
Keep. Yeah, as usual. We had some surprises earlier. You might add those in later.
Yeah. Watch the end of the thing. I've got to edit some clips in as well. All right, darling. Lovely seeing you, and I'll interview you next week.
Brilliant. Look forward to it.
Thanks.
So take care.
Bye.
Enjoy your week.
Bye,
everyone. Hello, everybody. Welcome to God. What episode are we on now?
I think this is number 12.
Okay, it was my idea to just get to actually have a one-on-one with Erkan.
And what I'm learning and what is opening up for me is the part, like what kind of got me here. I think hold on a sec. Guys, we're in the middle of a podcast, yeah? Dad, I'm in the middle of doing a recording.
Hello, Emily. I love it. It's all right.
I said to her, I'm going to start recording.
Now, it's all right. Yeah, so what is it about the empowered living movement? Like, why did you... Okay, let's start from the beginning. What made you decide to do this? What was it?
Dad, okay.
Honey, how are you?
Nothing goes surrounding you, goes everywhere.
There you go. There's humility there, right there.
Yeah, I'm going.
Shukur, Abby, shukur. What it feels to be empowered.
I got my own power. He
Oh, God,
doesn't
Dad.
think
It's
so,
true,
but I
Abby.
got it.
That's right. I think that's where Erkan gets it from, Zaten.
Yeah, but tell him that.
Okay, you two.
Erkan. Oh, hello. No, how are you? Canım benim.
Anyway, we'll let you get on with it. We'll speak to you later. Say hello to mom.
I will do. I will do. Gelecek görsün seni annem.
Gelin bekleriz.
She's gonna come ister. Sürekli söyler.
Tamam buyurun bekleriz. Hadi bay bay.
Bye.
Hadi bay bay. They're lovely. You gotta love them, Erkan. Canlar.
Never mind all that bollocks. We're going to take over.
Yeah, that'd be
What
funny.
it takes to do a podcast when you're at home with your mum and dad. I think, you know what, it's like some people said to me it's going to take you 2 or 3 years to get in. You know, people project their views about things, and it did take a little while. It's not just the getting used to Cyprus, it's getting used to you in Cyprus.
Yeah.
You know? So I still notice that there's that inner turbine wanting to get things done and get as much sorted and get the next thing, you know, like coming out of that industrial.
Yeah.
I feel I'm
It's coming out of the program, isn't it? It's coming out of the big program.
It's coming out of the big program and slowing down to the pace that is a natural pace as opposed to an industrial pace, or a machine pace, or I mean, now it's more of a digital pace. It's a digital pace,
definitely.
and it's forever encroaching us, and we have to be, you know, not that, you know, it's just mindful of how much you get on Facebook or you're online or you're, you know, it's just it draws us in continually. Should we kind of start again?
Yeah, although